Thanks for staying with us. You're watching Gravitas. Now, several European countries have already banned devout, conservative Muslim women from wearing a burqa, a head-to-toe covering, as have several West African nations. Now, one more African country appears close to joining that list, Morocco. In a notice to local retailers and producers, Morocco appears to have banned the production, sale and import of burqas for security concerns. They say the burqa has for long been a symbol of enslavement. But the question we are asking tonight is, will a burqa ban, hijab ban or a niqab ban help fight terror, no matter where it is implemented? A Muslim or a non-Muslim country, is it justified? What about the freedom of choice of an individual? We're going to be talking more about that in just a bit, but first a look at this report filed by our senior international correspondent, Padma Rao.
To cover or not to cover? That's no longer a question, but a diktat, at least in Morocco. The former French colony has emerged as the first Maghreb or northwest African state to ban the burqa, the all-covering garment worn by conservative Muslim women. There's been no official announcement yet, but an employee of the country's interior ministry in the capital Rabat has clarified to the country's shopkeepers and its media that it is the sale, import, manufacture and marketing of the burqa that are no longer permissible. And the reason? Security concerns to prevent criminals from misusing the all-encompassing garment. But what are Moroccan women, most of whom prefer the headscarf or hijab to the burqa anyway, saying about the ban? As in any modern democracy, both a yes and a no.
I'm in favor of the ban on the sale of the burqa. You can't recognize the people who are wearing it. I mean, other men or women, and it is conducive to terrorism.
I'm against this ban. It is unfair. Why don't they prevent girls from wearing indecent clothes or ban bars, alcohols, cigarettes? They only ban certain things, and these are our things.
The fear of misuse of the burqa is not unreasonable. It's been barely 3 months since 10 women suspected of being Islamic State militants, the first female suspects, were arrested in Morocco. There are an estimated 1,500 IS fighters of Moroccan descent in Syria and Iraq, of whom several hundreds have been caught and jailed. After all, Morocco has been an ally in the Western war against Islamist terror, at least since 15 persons, mostly foreigners, were killed in an explosion 5 years ago in a Marrakesh cafe popular with tourists. Rabat's anxiety to stay a favoured destination for Western tourists and in the US-led anti-terror coalition's good books too is understandable. But has the moderate country gone too far this time? Hamad Kabaj, a Salafist preacher who was once arrested for his extremist views, told his social media fans that the ban is unacceptable. He also took a dig at Morocco being so conscious of freedom that it seems to consider skimpy Western swimsuits an unassailable right. But there is heated debate on the hijab in freedom-loving Western countries too. A French court did overturn a ban on the hijab, but attacks by Islamist terrorists are on the rise, and the pitch of the pan-European discussion has grown louder too.
The Muslims, they want countries to become even more Islam. I'm against it.
If freedom of religion applies to the rest, then they can ban the burqa. But I do know if some Muslims here who think that it's a bit too extreme to wear it in Germany, that it's covering too much of the body.
As far
as I know, the modest fashion movement, like where the hijab is trying to look, stylish and everything, actually it's a form of way that we are telling people that we are also the same like you. We are same like you. We like fashion, and also we want to, we want to look pretty. We also want to dress properly. We don't want to be, excluded.
While the debate rages, couturiers are laughing all the way to the bank. Salafist clerics frown upon any embellishment of the burqa with astounding determination to disallow women from wearing anything remotely attractive. But the haute hijab is selling like, well, hotcakes across the Islamic world. Initiatives like dress codes usually claim to be for the greater good of mankind. Morocco's burqa ban, too, is aimed at combating terrorism. But the epitome of tyranny against women's rights is the Islamic State, the very group that Morocco has been helping Western countries in trying to eliminate. In banning what is essentially a personal choice, is Morocco now guilty of the same crime as the terrorists? Padma Rao, WION.
Right, let's talk about the burqa ban in Morocco. Joining me here in the studio is Mr. Jan Ross. He's the South Asia correspondent for the German weekly publication Die Zeit. Dr. Murad Benish, political and strategic analyst. He joins me live from Rabat in Morocco. And Rishfa Mohammed, she's a Sharia and law student at the Islamic University of Maldives. Thank you all very much for joining me on the show. Dr. Benish, let me come to you first. Till some days ago, only shopkeepers and businessmen in Morocco were reportedly told of the impending burqa ban. Has the government made any official announcement or public announcement to this effect?
Hi, good evening. Well, actually, we have to clarify a point here, that this decision was actually a unilateral decision taken by local authorities in one of the southern towns in Morocco, which called Taradant. So as of yet, there is no actually official statement from either the Ministry of Interior or the official government. As a matter of fact, this is a huge decision that has to be discussed first at the parliament, which was just formed yesterday. So there is nothing official. There is no official statement from the government, which is yet to be formed. So we're still waiting for it since last October. So it was just, as I said a minute ago, it was just a decision taken by some official in one remote city in the southern of Morocco.
All right, but nevertheless, it has, led to this debate across, because we've seen it in Europe as well. And Jan, my question to you now, we've seen Angela Merkel, the German Chancellor, come out and say that we're going to ban the burqa, regretting her open door policy. We've seen France taking back its decision to ban the burqa. So how successful will it be in Germany?
Well, I think if they really try to ban it, and for now it is only a plan, it will be fought in the courts, and it will be certainly fought in the Constitutional Court. And I think it will be declared unconstitutional, because this certainly impacts on the freedom of religion. It is an individual choice. I think it should remain an individual choice. The state has no business meddling here. But the practice in Europe is uneven. I mean, there are countries who tolerate it, there are others who are more hostile to it. So it's a mixed picture.
Right. Do you think it's become rather political, with the refugees coming in these countries?
Of course. I mean, it's connected to that. It's a symbolic thing. Yeah. I think that many people, conservative people in Angela Merkel's own party, are not comfortable with her refugee policy. So she tried to offer them something, and the symbolic thing she offered is the burqa ban.
All right. Rishfa, coming to you, you're a student of the Sharia. What are your views on the hijab or the burqa ban? Do you support the ban at a personal level, or are you against it? And could you list your reasons as well for whatever your choice is?
I completely support. I don't support the ban of the burqa, obviously, because we have given the human rights, right? So we have right to education, right to freedom of this and that, and then we have freedom of religion. When it comes to freedom of religion, you can't practice anything else. And the burqa, the hijab, and all this covering is part of our religion. So when you're talking about the freedom of religion, you can't say, okay, you can practice your religion at home and not practice it like outside. We're practicing it outside, like covering ourselves. And if we are allowed only this much of our right, then what is human rights actually? It's not given to us completely then.
All right. Rishfa, we're kind of losing your audio. We'll come back to you in just a bit, try and rectify that. But Rishfa there, proudly wearing her hijab over there, of course not a burqa, and she supports it. She supports it, and as we've been talking about, it's a personal choice. Dr. Benish, now officials of Morocco's Interior Ministry have been quoted as saying that the ban is a move to, or the call for a ban is a move to prevent misuse of the burqa by criminals. And this is merely after the arrest of 10 women militants attached to the Islamic State, the arrest that took place in October last year, that perhaps prompted this move. Have there been more instances of terrorists availing themselves to carry out their, crimes there?
Excuse me. Well, to be honest with you, we have to clarify something. I did highlight early on that there is no official statement yet to be made by the Ministry of Interior. So it's all quiet from the official government. It's just unilateral decision taken, as I mentioned early on, by some civil servants in the town of Taradant in south of Morocco. Let me state something here. There are two aspects to tackle this issue. The first one is political, and the second one is socio-theological. The first one, as you mentioned, and your distinguished guests, there is always that fear of terrorism, radical Muslims. So now the burqa or the niqab, the way how people or the government have seen it, it's kind of new to the Moroccan society. It's been introduced, I would say, for the past 20 years or so, especially when the Salafis started to invade, Muslim and Arab countries. And with the growing fear of terror attacks, and we have seen it all before. We've seen it in Europe, we've seen it in the United States, in Asia, in Africa. We don't know who to deal with when you see a person fully covered wearing all black. So this is one aspect. The other one, the socio-theological aspects, we should never forget that Morocco is not, and I say it's not, a secular state. So it's ruled by a king who is at the same time has a constitutional title and
Right.
religious title, which is the leader of the faithful. Therefore, such a decision will create some contradiction in the political system of the country. So that this itself would deny
Right.
any official claim.
Dr. Benich, I hear both your points that you made, and perhaps you're right in your view. But the point is that Islamic State is seen as a terror group that deprives women of their personal freedom. Now, if Morocco indeed makes this ban official, and there are talks, it might just do so, isn't then Morocco and some other Western nations doing the very same thing?
Well, there is no recorded incidents in Morocco that can prove that women in Morocco have been subject to any kind of harassment. We have seen people, women with hijab, the normal hijab. We've seen women here in Morocco with the veil, the full body veil. The thing is, the way how the society sees it, it's this new outfit. It's introduced to Morocco from different countries. It doesn't represent or reflect the Moroccan heritage and culture. At the same time, we all grew in Morocco. We've seen our grandmothers and our mothers wearing not the burqa, not the niqab, but the full body veil with the transparent thing covering the face. You can still see the features of the person behind the veil, so you can tell if the person is a woman or a man. Unlike the black outfit or the burqa, the Afghani style, I mean, I can understand if ever, and I say here, if ever the Moroccan Ministry of Interior takes such a decision, it has to take such preventative measures, to prevent any possible attacks, because at the end of the day, the security of the nation comes first and above any social heritage. But we have a general consensus here in Morocco that we all agree, and we are all for the Moroccan veil. A woman can do whatever she pleases, whatever she wants, as long as what she does not violate the social code or the religious code in Morocco.
Okay, so, Dr. Benich, I get your point. I hear you. So, but many would say that, why just ban the burqa? Then if terrorists have to do something, they could hide themselves in other ways. They could perhaps dress up as somebody different, perhaps put on a mustache. Jan, I wanted to come to you. With the right-wing groups in Germany going from strength to strength, what do you think is going to happen in Germany at this point? Do you think it's more of a divisionary tactic as far as the situation in Germany is concerned? And from the security point of view, do you think such a move would yield any results?
Well, as far as I know, there have been no burqas or niqabs been involved in any terrorist attacks in Europe. So you couldn't have prevented any acts of terrorism by banning it. I think we really have to distinguish between the security aspect on the one hand and the societal aspect on the other hand. These terrorism things are serious. And of course, you mentioned the right-wing groups that are strengthened throughout Europe. Right. So to counter this dangerous political development, governments have to do something. But I think what they have to do is police work and intelligence work. I'm all for CCTV cameras in our cities. But it's not right to cater to religious bigotry or prejudice. So you really have to separate between what you do to counter the threat of violence on the one hand and the life choices of people where Muslims, conservative people, pious people have to be as free as secular liberal guys or whoever.
Right. Right. Rishva, if I can come back to you, if the audio is a little better, what is the general sense among people in the Maldives? It's also a big tourist destination there as well. What do people on the ground feel about bans or talks of bans, in countries like Morocco, France, Germany, or other European countries?
So I cannot speak for the whole country, but I can say this from the people I know that they do not support certain bans, because in this country also there are people who wear the full niqab, and then they wear the whole body veil thing, the black cloth, they all wear it, and some of them don't even wear hijab. So we have this culture in our country. So it's not like that we don't, everybody is not supporting it. Everybody is practicing their religion in their own way. So we can't say that these people are doing this is right and this is wrong. I can't speak for the whole country. But as far as I can tell my own opinion, that the ban is totally unnecessary, because some people want to live their life certain way. And this burqa, the whole veil thing, is actually a comfort for some women. So it is actually beyond reasons to ban this. I fully believe that people are allowed to wear the bikinis and all this in certain areas of the countries, so they should be also allowed to cover. Why can't they cover if people can roam around naked? I mean, not naked, but there are some places that is allowed.
Yeah, where people are more liberal. Right. I get your point, Rishva. I get your point. Dr. Benish, if I can come to you, just like the Maldives, Morocco perhaps more earns a lot of revenue from tourism. Given the paranoia over Islam that we've seen, it's rampant across the world today, could the tourism industry perhaps be one of the most hit provided this ban comes into effect?
Well, actually, let me, if you allow me, let me correct something. The world does not panic about Islam. The world panics about radical Islam. The Islamophobia has been caused by, the actions of certain radicals and fundamentalists who actually do not represent over 1.5 billion Muslims around the world, and don't even represent Islam. Islam doesn't need someone or some entity or group to represent it. So let's clarify that. As per Morocco, and being subject to some struggles when it comes to tourism and all that, I mean, again, there was no recorded incident that tourists have been subject in Morocco, to some attacks by radical Muslims, unlike what happened in some neighboring countries without naming them. I mean, yeah, there are some odd incidents here and there caused by criminals, and criminals do exist all over the world. We cannot put a label of Islam to a criminal or any religion for that matter. So what we should focus here more is, does Morocco do the police work for Europe or for the world? As you mentioned earlier on, Morocco, has engaged with a lot of partnerships, and collaborating with a lot of European states, and the world now becomes, one small entity, and everyone shares information with the other states to prevent what might happen. We don't want to see incidents. We had our share of terrorism in Morocco, like in India, like Spain, Egypt, and the list goes on and on. So, as I said, even if the government takes such a decision, it has to fall under preventative measures to protect the nation, to protect the country. Yes, it's true. A person can be, clean-shaved, or a woman can be wearing blue jeans, for instance, and she might be radical, but it is just a preventative, measure that the government might take. And I can tell you right now, it's going to be very, very risky move if the Moroccan government takes such a decision, because it has to first be discussed in the parliament. And to be honest with you, for the Moroccan parliament gives its blessing for such a decree. It's gonna be an unprecedented decision, because we are a Muslim state. We are a Muslim nation.
Right. So it's going to be tough. You're saying, first of all, even making it permanent or bringing about the ban officially, that's going to be next to impossible. But it can happen. We'll have to wait and watch as to what happens. But Jan, if you can tell us a bit more about Germany and the, as we've been talking about, the need to strengthen intelligence gathering, make sure that the intelligence gathering is at par with, let's say, if an attack happens, it doesn't take days. And Angela Merkel was under fire for that a few weeks ago. So isn't that more important than anything else in the first place?
I think this is more important. I mean, there are historical reasons for Germans' reluctance when it comes to surveillance, because twice in the 20th century, under the Nazis, as well as in communist East Germany, we had, excesses by the secret police. So there is a fear of the state becoming too overwhelming or overweening in terms of its powers. And I think we have overcorrected a little bit in terms of this. So our police work may not be as tight and professional as, for example, in France or in the UK. Right. So we have to catch up there. And this is the most important thing, more, I think, than these, let's say, cultural issues like the veil.
Right. So that's more important. And I'm going to take in closing comments from each of you. Dr. Murad Benich, first to you. Do you think that Morocco will benefit from a ban on burqa or the hijab or the niqab in the days to come? Of course, we have that rider. In case that goes through the parliament, first of all, would you support it? And do you think it's going to change the security situation for Morocco in the days to come?
You asked me if I personally would support the ban. Yes, I would, because we live in crazy times, and I, for one, would be, scared personally to be surrounded by people I cannot identify them. Again, in different times, probably I would stand against the decision. In these days, we put the freedom of speech, we put the freedom of doing whatever pops to our heads aside, and we think about the national security, about this, our stability as a nation. As per the government taking this decision, it will backfire, because it's going to go against a lot of people who actually feel they are free to do whatever they want under the freedom of liberty or the liberty, to do what they want in the society which is preserved by the Constitution. And their argument, they say, hey, we are a Muslim state. If you're gonna ban the burqa, which falls under our doctrine, why don't you ban the bikinis? Why don't you ban the miniskirts and the Western, outfits? So it's gonna backfire. So that's why, or that explains why the government, as it stands, is taking a neutral position and just watching what's going on.
Got your points. Rishwa, very quickly, you have 30 seconds. Would you visit a country where the burqa or the veil or the hijab is banned, let's say Morocco, or places in France where it has, where it had been banned, or Belgium, for instance?
No, I will not visit such places, because if that means that I have to leave my religion out of this country, that I cannot practice my religion, then why should I? Why should I visit?
Okay. Rishwa would not like to.
I would not visit.
Okay, Rishwa. And closing comments from you, Jan. What do you think? Will this work? This increasing calls from country after country saying that ban the burqa, ban the hijab, ban the veil, and our security perhaps will be better.
I think it will backfire, because we will alienate many Muslims, many Muslim women who would not think of wearing such a thing, will nevertheless have the feeling that it is Westerners, white people, whoever, again, telling them what to do. So I think this is not the way to go.
All right, this is not the way to go. We have different perspectives on the show tonight. Some say that it should be done. Some say the ban should not come into effect because it will really serve no purpose. With that, it's time for us to wrap up this discussion. Thanks so much, Rishva, Jan Ross and Dr. Murad Benij for joining us this evening on Gravitas. We're going to be taking a short break. News and updates continue on the other side.